Action from Washington, D.C. Our David Aldridge is there. And David, Boogie was being shopped. There's no question about that. And when you look at this now, the word on the street is the Kings got fleeced. Or did they? Is it addition by subtraction? What's your take?
Look, first of all, I don't know of any team that takes the offer on Sunday, 4 days before the trade deadline. I mean, look, would somehow New Orleans have made a worse offer 2 days from now than they made on Sunday? You usually get the best offers on Wednesday and Thursday. That's the whole point of people waiting to the last minute. You know, it's pretty standard negotiating by most teams and most people in any business is that you don't give your best offer the first day. You give it as soon to the deadline as possible. So that doesn't make any sense what Vladimir just said. You know, if they want to get rid of DeMarcus Cousins, look, it's their team. They can decide what they want. If he was too big a pain for them to deal with anymore, it's their call, you know. And I wrote this today. Look, $200 million, that's a lot of money. Yeah. So I'm not saying they had to give him the new designated player exception. They didn't have to do it. All I'm saying is you can only trade your best player one time, right? So if you're going to trade your best player, you have to get the absolute best offer you can. And you cannot tell me that that is the absolute best offer that the Sacramento Kings could have gotten, whether it's today, tomorrow, Thursday morning, or this summer for DeMarcus Cousins. I just don't believe that.
No, I don't believe it either. I think the Kings were very bad at this hand of poker that they were playing. David, any indications now that the Pelicans have Boogie Cousins, that they can keep Boogie Cousins beyond this contract?
Well, that's where the rubber is going to meet the road, Vince. I'm not sure. They talked to Alvin Gentry today, and look, Alvin's excited about it. Obviously, he's got two All-Stars in his front court now, and two terrific front court players. They have to figure out. I mean, somebody's going to have to guard somebody here in this equation, right? So one of these two guys may have to give up some offense to be more impactful at the defensive end in terms of guarding people in the low post. Out to stretch fours. I mean, somebody's going to have to do that, and one of these two guys is going to have to do that. So they got to figure that part out. I don't think it's necessarily, you know, given that he's definitely not going to re-sign in New Orleans. I think they're willing to, you know, take a rest of this season and look at it and see where they are over the summer. They've got a big decision with Jrue Holiday. He's a free agent. They have to get him re-signed. So depending on what else happens, I think we'll go a long way towards whether Cousins decides he wants to stay there. But certainly they have the biggest chip you can possibly have to keeping him there, which is you get to play with Anthony Davis for the next 3 or 4 years. That's a very good start for the Pelicans.
And, D.A., we've had conversations like this before. Let's go big picture for future young players coming into the NBA and even young guys who may be disgruntled. What is that message now that no matter how talented you may be or you may be that franchise player, but there's a sense of professionalism you still have to bring to the table every night?
No question, 3D. You know, DeMarcus made a lot of this possible with his own behavior. You know, most teams don't trade their best player because their best player doesn't give them any reason to trade them. You know, and so DeMarcus has to own a lot of this. You know, the outbursts, whether it's against coaches or against teammates and people in the organization. You know, nobody likes to be yelled at, right? I mean, none of us like to be yelled at. So you can only take so much of that before you say, okay, that's enough. I'm not going to take that anymore. And then the Kings just basically said, that's enough. We're not taking this anymore. But I think it's a good opportunity also for DeMarcus to kind of pivot. You know, this is a point of his career, and we've seen lots of guys who were so-called troublemakers and whatever pivot and have very successful second halves to their careers. Think about a guy like a Robert Parrish. Think about Latrell Sprewell. Nobody had a worse reputation than Latrell Sprewell. Wound up going to the Knicks and leading them to the finals. So you can have a second act in the NBA if you figure out some things about yourself and how you behave and how you treat other people. The problem with DeMarcus is not that he's a bad person. I don't believe that. I think he does so many good things for people that he never tells anybody about. The problem is he still has a problem controlling his frustration and his anger, and he lashes out, and he's got to figure out a way to stop that because, you know, grown people don't have to listen to you yell at them. They have options, you know. So that's where he's got to figure it out. And as I said before, he's got a great opportunity. He didn't get traded to a team with no talent. He got traded to a team with a fellow All-Star, one of the best young players in the league, and a great young guy. And so here's where DeMarcus can maybe show some leadership, not only with Antonio Davis, but the rest of the guys in that locker room.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, D.A., how much is on the shoulders of Young and Anthony Davis? In other words, trying to get Boogie Cousins where he needs to be as a fellow young veteran. I mean, how much is it on him to try to still do his work and then acclimate Boogie Cousins as well?
There's a lot of pressure on him, and so I mean, this is a big deal for this team. You know, they gave up a first-round pick and their first-round pick this year in Buddy Hield. So in essence, 2 first-round picks, 2 lottery picks, and they brought in a guy who, you know, we know has a reputation. So Anthony Davis has to do 2 things. He has to welcome DeMarcus Cousins in and make him feel at home. But I think he also has to help hold DeMarcus accountable. You know, DeMarcus said, hey, you know, the talent level in Sacramento isn't where it should be. Well, now you got talent next to you. Next to you in your locker. That guy next to in the next locker is a pretty good basketball player. So I think Anthony Davis has earned the right to hold DeMarcus Cousins accountable if he does start going off the reservation. So that's the challenge is going to be, does he have the voice, does he have the gravitas to get Boogie to pay attention?
Yeah, and beyond that, they both can call Lexington and maybe get John Calipari on the phone, and he can help smooth over what they need.
I see where you're going, Vince.
No, I just meant trying to get everybody together. You know, that's all I meant. I didn't mean to open any doors. David, don't start any trouble, David. Don't start. Just reporting what I do know. David Aldridge, thank you. Thank you very much, David.
All right, guys. Yep.